Well, I'm going to dispose of my timer because I got a little bit of a late start. So, welcome to Nycos Nightly News. I am Game Master Jay, and you see there's been a bit change up in my layout, so to speak. I've changed the name on the screen, but I've also changed my way of approaching you, the audience, and I hope you like what you see. We are going to be doing some things that are a little bit different, and some major changes have occurred that have to do with the upcoming launch of the Launchpad. Talk about redundancy there. We're going to be actually doing a broadcast on the Launchpad inception, beginning, if you will, on Monday at I believe it's 10 a.m. On Facebook, and I'll put the link to that in the description of this video, both on YouTube and here on Twitch as well. I want to thank you. If you haven't been here before, I'm Jonathan Albin, Game Master with very nearly 50 years of game experience, and I am endeavoring to do several things at once, and one of which, of course, is the world of Nycos. And so we have several news stories we're going to be doing. As you see, we're setting this up to be more specifically for Launchpad because it's coming up so quickly. But we do have stories about our Saturday game and also our, let's see, I guess it's our Tuesday game update that I just uploaded. But there's more coming, of course, and we will have another dip into the concepts behind the Order of the Veils, and we'll be going over one of them in particular. Of course, then I have 9 things that you need to know, and then we will talk a little bit about the big announcement. And I have a bit of a teaser. There is something going on right this second that you don't know about that's the beginning of this process. So we'll go into this as we go. Now, if you haven't been with us before, please take a look around, so to speak. Watch several of my videos if you can to get an idea. I do want to apologize a bit. I'm having a bit of a difficulty tonight with my lower lip, which is really weird, but I have a condition called Bell's palsy, and it causes me to lose control of muscles in my face, generally the left side or the right side. I think today it's the right side that's giving me grief, but my lower lip is pretty much given out, so I will be trying to speak as clearly as I can. But anyway, let's get on with this, shall we? Let's head over to our first story, the group of Tuesday nights called Skyffborne. Alrighty, so Skyffborne is an adventure in the southern portion of the western continent, Growlin, and we are in an area that is known as the Farthfell. The map there is representative of an ancient kingdom, Londoria, which existed in the Farthfell region in the past, and the players are in particular looking for ways to discover what's happened to that culture and those people. And in particular, they are endeavoring to discover the location and the ruins of Londovia, the capital city of the ancient kingdom. So they made the travels via their newly acquired Eldrin airship, and have on the way there they had a couple of options, and they decided to investigate what appeared to be a group of industrious workers in a field, and found themselves very nearly drawn into this nihilist cult. And as they escaped from that, they made their way across some distance. They were in the hilly regions east of Tenerife, and they came in contact with a Fargol by the name of Leonidas, and Leonidas, having been an adventurer in the region, was an optimal guide for them. And after the initial tense encounter with him, finding that he was a trapper and adventurer in the area, they convinced him to guide them to their new location. And of course, trying to deal with a cat on board, a feline on an airship who had never been airborne before was quite interesting. And after they had traveled for some distance, they came to the ruins that they assume must be the ruins of the ancient city. And as they did so, Leonidas was newly enjoined, and so he was rather enthusiastic in his discovery of a Salamor nest on part of the long forgotten barricade wall. And so he very happily shredded it as you might expect a feline to do, with a big wad of nesting materials, and basically cleared the area. Now, let me see. Got a bit of a note here coming in, so just a second. Alrighty. Also, if you are following our channel and are already on the Discord, I actually am in the live audio channel if you wanted to converse with me. I'm much more of a two-way communication person. Funny that, being a role-play gamer. But the channel is available if you want to come on and talk with me as well. I tend to have longer shows when I have somebody to talk to, otherwise I run through my material rather quickly. So as they were engaged with the ripping down of this wall, they found a small being, and not knowing what it was, they kind of fiddled with it, and it appeared to be some sort of tree climbing, or it was called a tree turtle. A Salamor was the species name, and they had never dealt with one before, so they fiddled with it for a while, and later they ran into one of the mama units, so to speak, one of the parental units, and were able to basically divert it away from their location so that they could continue into the ruins. And then when they did, they came across two separate entrances into what appeared to be passageways, like a revetment behind this barricade wall that they'd found. And as they explored it, they discovered that it was unfortunately rather filled with water. Of course, this is rather brackish water that had been there for who knows how long. The water table must have been fairly high, because the water was static on a staircase, and they realized that if they went any further in, they would of course be becoming submerged. And so they were trying to determine what they were going to do to remove the fluid, and they discovered that it was a rather flammable and gaseous liquid. As a matter of fact, they caused a rather spectacular gas explosion when they accidentally put a lit torch into the area where the entrance was. And that was, of course, fun with flammables. And at the ending of the session, they had basically cleared out the fluid, the flammables, and put out the fires. So it was all set up. So they're ready now to travel further into the ruins, and we'll be doing that next week. Alrighty. Next, we're going to go over to Eastern Skies. And this is the Saturday morning game, which will be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If you are interested in being a participant, feel free to PM me directly and I can get you coordinated. You will need to be on the Discord because that's how we handle the audio, and we'll be carrying more information about that prior to the show tomorrow. And of course, I'll do a reminder before the end of this show about it as well. But in the case of the Eastern Skies, they are still in the vicinity of the city of Burgelcut. they did some local investigation. Were trying to put together their resources to come up with the materials for an adventure northward. Due to the holidays on Nycos happening to coincide happily with those here on Earth, the travelers in the area have been coming in and they're descending on the local communities, and so there's a lot of buzz and interest in shopping and such, so there's a lot of that going on. The first ships are still on the process of being prepared for the mission into the Black Waters. As I've mentioned before, until this iteration, there hasn't been any access to stellar or astral navigation. They didn't have the ability to use stars to navigate, but for the last 300 years, these objects in the heavens have been stable, and so they're beginning to consider whether they should trust them for this long-awaited adventure. Now, the Order of Valor did help to liberate the escape pod for one of the players in the group, and so they will be taking possession of that this week as well. And although we didn't have a session last week due to members, we will be. It looks like we're on task to have a session on tomorrow morning. So watch for us here on Twitch. Now there has been snowfall now confirmed in the Shatterhorns, which is rather significant since there hasn't been any for almost 300 years, and so the odd timing of this may be in association with the objects that were noticed from the Oculus that we adventured to discover last week. Interesting note is that it is here in Burglecut that the Jubileethans are going to be offering the first apprenticeships. So players who are interested in becoming members of the Jubileethan Order will be able to pick up information on that while they're in the city at this point. And this also happens to coincide with the completion of the first official trade route between Anchorage and Burglecut since the war. As you may know, there was at the end of the last iteration, there was an undead or a lifeless, I should say, incursion, and so they had to deal with that. But now those pathways have been cleared, and furthermore, the Prismus religious members are beginning to start their evangelism push. So here in the city, there's been a lot of holiday cheer being spread around by the members of the Prismus Church. And the clock tower, of course, is coming up on completion, so that will be indeed a moment of interest. Now, we're going to switch gears a bit, and we're going to talk a bit about the Order of Veils. Now, we may have covered this before, but that would be perfectly in keeping with the Order of Flavius. The Order of Flavius is dedicated to the proposition of change, and change for change's sake. Because of this, they aren't very static, and as a matter of fact, the very concept of their icon as Flavius sometimes is referred to as Flavia because even their gender is not necessarily a static thing. The primary means of recognizing faith is its completely contrarian idea and disposition, and so therefore anything that is established as a rule or a definition of a boundary within the Order of Flavia will probably be changed by tomorrow. Now the Flavians, because of this, are as much as possible arbitrary in all of their functions of life, their actions, and even their occupations. This changes, therefore, those who claim to be Flavian may tomorrow deny it, or tomorrow they might be even more of an advocate, and therefore it's difficult to know. The magic effects that the Flavians create, therefore, also tend to be of the chaotic nature. They're capricious, unexpected, and sometimes even personally dangerous because they just simply want to see what's going to happen. Now, even this slide that we're looking at right now about them may or may not remain because they may change and alter it. So chaotic and mercurial are they. All right, now we switch over to the more serious portion of the show. And that is the 9 things that you need to know. As a game master and storyteller, I have people sit down at the table that have a myriad of their own personal issues they need to deal with. But the reality is that you need to know that life is, by definition, a game. And I'm going to give you my definition of what a game is because some people feel that I'm a little too strict, but let me describe. A game, by definition, is something that occurs over a specific and limited time with objectives and agendas for success or failure between 2 or more persons who are inputting information into the process and making decisions, and that will resolve over the course of time, whether or not it is a scorekeeping endeavor or not. So let's look at it this way. Life is a game by definition. We're only here for a limited amount of time. We generally know what the rules are in terms of what we're supposed to do. We all, of course, put in our own input in our decision-making processes to resolve these things. And ultimately, when the game of life has concluded, we're done. Now, I have to say, of course, that the resources that we use in the game of life, we could say that it's the money we have and the clothes on our back and the house we live in, but the reality is that the resources are what we bring to the table, each individual one of us. We bring our work, our wits, and our wisdom. It's what we have discovered and what we have learned that we're able to bring forward when we are involved in the game of life. Now, admittedly and obviously, from my perspective, in this case, life is an RPG. You're going to play a lot of different roles. You play a child, you play a parent, you play a student, you play a teacher. There's a million different pathways. And like the Nycos RPG, it's not based on a class, it's not based on a species. You can be anything literally you want to be within the capabilities that you have and the resources you have to work with. Now, the long-term goal is surprisingly not what you may think. Many people would say, well, in the game of life, the goal is to, what's the old saying, he who has the most toys wins. That's one way to look at it. The long-term goal is really joy and contentment, because if you can be truly happy, if you can truly experience joy in your life, then that is the highest value. As a father, the raising of my children was absolutely a joy, and I enjoyed every moment of it. I've had more careers than most people have. Former air traffic controller, former microwave antenna installer, former landscaper. I mean, I've done millions and dozens of things, but that's all the different roles I've played. But my purpose and the goal has always been to be a happy person. Now, it's also important to note that the game begins again every day. So if the play hasn't gone the way you want it to, you can restart. You can hit the restart button and begin again. Now, granted, we can't, as a wise man named, or a questioning man named by the name of Nicodemus said, no, we can't return to our mothers and start all over that way. But we can literally, in effect, be born again. We can change our path immediately in 180 degrees from where we are if we choose. The games begin every day. Now you play at your own pace. There's no one that's going to have a stopwatch checking off to see whether you accomplish your goals within a timely manner. Because the reality is that this is a single player solo game. Now, if you are blessed enough to find a partner who can share that with you, or in certain groups, maybe a large group of friends that gather together to work on a project, that's great. But the reality is that nobody else is keeping score for you. There's not even a way to keep score or to check off wins and losses. That's not that kind of a game. And just realize that you can build as large a play group as you want. I actually advocate for, and in the Launchpad process, I teach people how to build a team play environment instead of a teamwork environment. And there's a lot to that as well. So I'll be glad to share more information about that a little bit later. But just realize that it's a lot more fun playing life than having just a work life. So with that in mind, realize that Nycos RPG and the Nycos Imagination Launchpad is the solution, and we can share with you more information about that coming up. As a matter of fact, that was a great segue. We're going to go over here and talk about the components for a second about Launchpad, because we're going to be talking about one of the really important ones here in a second. Now, as you see listed here, you have the idea of clearing the baffles, getting clear of everything. And I could go through all these, but I'm not going to. In this case, we're talking about the fourth one. The fourth one. Yes, fourth one. And that's the transition protocols. So let me switch over to that screen and we will get started on that. Oh, look at that. We're back at the beginning. No, we're going to be going to the screen because I want to be able to share in a bigger way than I could over there. And I'm also going to be talking completely off the cuff in this case, because the Transformation Chronicles and Transformation Protocols is very, very important. And the Transformation Protocols are that line between what you understand about a project and what you're willing to do. I don't know how many of you have been to any of the motivational speakers presentations that are out there. I used to be a member of Toastmasters, so I got to hear lots of motivational and promotional speeches. And of course, there's tons through TED Talks, and there's tons through the YouTube and avenue of communication, and Twitch, of course. But what I have found is that almost all of them draw a line and they say, you got to spend money at this point if you're serious. You have to be able to throw down smack. You want to put some money on the table if you want to move past this point. And the reasoning that they are using for that is the very idea of what golfers call skin in the game. The idea is that if you have nothing ventured, nothing gained, if you don't have something put into positioning, then you can't possibly know. You can't know that you're going to be committed to it. And so the way I talk about the transformation protocols most clearly is I give an example. Now, if those of you that know me know that I wear hats a lot. But in this case, I'm wearing it because it is concealing one of the big changes for a transformation protocol. And I want to give one that's an example in my life so that you can consider using it for yourself if you so choose. Let's see, I think I finished it. Did I finish it? No, I did not. We'll come back to that. All right, so here it is. The main thing that we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you my example right now, right here. Shocker shocks. I did it. I've been talking about doing it for decades, and I finally decided to go ahead and try it. And that is the first step of a transformation protocol, is do something meaningful. Something that's going to break you out of your current routines. Because a physical change, whether it be, in certain cases people dye their hair, or people do as I did and remove it, or perhaps they decide to paint their nail, whatever the thing is you want to do, there's several things you have to realize when I'm talking about a transformation protocol. Step one is do something extreme but reversible. If 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 I was if I wasn't sure my hair was going to grow back, I probably wouldn't have done this. And I may be surprised; it may never come back. I don't know, but I shaved it off for intent because in my life historically, I have always used either my facial hair or the style of hair as a mental trigger to break me out of frames. See, we in the world will build a routine. We'll build the things out that we want to do step by step, step. And as life goes along, we become dissatisfied with the course of things and we want to change them, but we don't do something that pushes us to that completion. That's why in many cases, and no, the reason they do it in the motivational speaking realm to have you put money in is they want to make money in the process. But for you, the biggest change is that you don't want to necessarily have to mess with your finances. Just do something that is going to be transformative, and this transformation for me is physical. I mean, as many of you know, I used to be a lot heavier than I am now, and a lot of people know that I used to have longish hair, and all of that. So every so often, when I hit a rut, when I hit a routine or a boundary, I do a transformation protocol and change something radical. So in this case, I shaved my head. So yeah, take a look at that. How often do you get to see somebody who's that crazy? First time in my life. Well, first time since I was an infant. Yes, I was pretty bald back then too. But the reason to do a transformation protocol step 1 is it needs to be something where you are ready to make the change. If you're not there yet, don't make a transformation protocol change. You're not, if you're not mentally prepared for something extreme, keep doing what you're doing, because it's better to be doing something than doing nothing. But in this case, the transformation begins with a radical change, and then something that is maintainable, and something that is non-damaging, and technically non-permanent, because although my hair is off for some period of time, it will eventually grow back. The reason you want to set up to have done this is because once you break out of a routine, the physical, visual change, and in my case, the actual feeling, goodness gracious, being bald after all this time does feel odd. The decision to make other changes therefore becomes easier because you've already shown that you can change. And once you've dedicated yourself to a change pattern, now you start to use the transformation step 1 as your proof text that change can occur, and then therefore start to establish your pattern built through the change storms process and through the planning phase, which we haven't gotten into yet. But I just wanted to mention this. We are, let's see, I am right at 1/2 an hour, so I got you before the commercial break, I think. I want to thank you for being here today. These are the things that I wanted to talk about. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put up my final slide, but I also want to talk about the things that are included on it. Do remember that tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the Eastern Skies group will be going live on Twitch, barring any other emergencies. We anticipate we'll have enough players for that. If you are interested in knowing more about the Nycos RPG, you can check that out at nycosrpg.com. And also for lore about the world of Nycos, you can check out www.nycosrpg.info. That's where you can find story, lore, and so much more. Our Discord is listed below and is also on our YouTube channel page. Follow us for more stories at nycosrpg.com, here on twitch.tv, or over on YouTube at Nycos RPG. And don't forget, if you want to be part of the process and join us in this endeavor to expand the world of Nycos, check out www.patreon.com/join/Nycos. Alrighty, that will complete this night's episode. I want to thank you so much for being here, being with us. I do want to thank you personally for taking the time to watch this video. And if you like what you're seeing, make sure you click the follow button here on Twitch. And if you have a chance, go over to youtube.com and at Nycos RPG. Follow us there and subscribe. Doesn't cost a thing over there, and you'll be able to get updated on whenever we do new videos. Alrighty, this has been Jonathan Albin, Game